Welcome, Allie, back to the Dating Intentionally podcast. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. I'm so excited to be back.
It's wild. Now I'm doing return guests. I feel like I'm still pretty new in my podcast journey, but it's so fun to have people back that.
It's really
And
cool.
look, your episode last year was the top guest episode of the year. So
I'm so honored to hear that. Like that is so cool. I'm really honored to have had that and have had been on the show and also to be back. And
yeah.
it's crazy. I listened back to our episode yesterday and it's crazy how much has changed and it hasn't even been a
Well, before we get into that, I do have a question for you that I ask every guest, which is what
yeah.
are you being intentional about lately, or what do you want to be more intentional about?
Does it have to be dating related?
No.
Oh, great. Um I am being more intentional about moving my body. Because I play volleyball competitively, I travel for it. I still play at a pretty high level, which I'm very grateful for, but more and more my body has been telling me that I need to be doing more than just that in order to keep it functioning, and I don't. Like, I work from home, like, I work for myself, I have a consulting business, I sit on the couch and I work, and my body is feeling it. So this year, I'm trying to be more intentional about, like, even just, like, getting up and going for a walk and keeping my joints. I sound like an old person, but keeping my joints moving.
We gotta take care of the joints now in our 30s. So we
Mhm.
should be talking about joints. Yeah, I mean, New York has been freezing, right? I'm sure that's not helping.
Oh, it's so cold. Today is so gross. Luckily, like, there's, like, treadmills in my building's gym, so I've been, like, trying to use that, but that is what I'm currently doing, trying to be more intentional, drink more water.
I feel you. I feel you. That's how I felt when I was doing bouldering every other day. I was going bouldering, and my body was like, "This is fun, but you need more."
Yeah, they're like, "Hey, girl,
Yeah.
maybe we do something else."
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh, okay, fine."
Okay, so back to what you were just saying, so everyone listening, I hope you go back and listen to the first episode that Ali was on, which again was the best guest episode of the year. So just to give listeners a picture of where you were at, you were single, you
Mhm.
were meeting people. It was like a mix of online and in person. You'd been dating for years. You openly talked about your dating journey. This released in April 2024, and
Mhm.
today you are in a relationship with someone you met in person.
Yes, I am. Yes. Yeah, it's crazy. So I also went back and I looked at my calendar from the week that you and I recorded because the episode came out April 12th, which
Yeah.
was 6 days before I met my boyfriend. Actually, technically, the day before I met him for the first time, but I didn't really remember that first time. So we recorded at the end of March. In that week, I went on a third and a fourth date with a guy that I'd met on an app. That was such a wonderful guy. And he definitely wanted to continue to progress things, and I could just tell that he was, like, really invested in. I mean, it's only been 4 dates, right? But, like, invested in moving things forward, and I just was not. I had gone on 2 dates with him that week. I also went to an omakase speed dating event because I was trying to go on more in-person events,
Mhm.
which that was really cool, by the way, because I love omakase, and it was like you moved every course.
Oh my god, that's such a good idea, actually.
It was such a good idea.
That's
It was like, obviously,
awesome.
at a sushi place, you sit, like, at a two-person table. I digress. So, I did that, and then at the end of the week you and I recorded, I left for a trip to Costa Rica that was a trip a brand had taken me on, and I decided on that trip that I was gonna quit my corporate job and start a consulting business so that I could be more flexible to do stuff with my podcast and my social media.
Wow.
It was quite the week. And then 2 weeks after that, I met Skyline, which is what I call my boyfriend.
Incredible. So, okay, so you mentioned because you said you went back and listened to the episode, and you said I used to ask people a hinge prompt as the first question,
Mhm.
and your hinge prompt was, "What green flags do you look for?" And
Yeah.
what did you say?
So, it's funny because I actually never used that prompt on Hinge. Like, I had never picked that one. I think because I just, like, couldn't summarize it so neatly. I said to you something that I had never said before, which is that I'm looking for someone who is easy to be with. I was, and that is true, but I'd never really, like, I don't think I'd phrased it that way. And I said that I was just looking for someone who made me feel comfortable, who just, like, again, like, shit's gonna come up, conflicts happen, whatever, but just overall feels easy.
Yeah.
2 weeks later, I met Skyline, and we started talking, and we just never stopped talking.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So,
And
okay.
it just was easy. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, Allie, like, it's dangerous to speak things out into the world because it does happen. It will happen. But I also think that's like the importance of saying things out loud that you want and hearing yourself say these things. And I think that that is a green flag that applies to everyone.
Oh,
You
yeah.
you need the person that you end up with to be easy to be around.
1,000%.
Yeah.
And I think I said this on the episode too. Like, the reason I had never really said that on my profile is because that means something different to every
Yeah,
person.
it's not
And
the
like,
best Hinge answer. If we're looking
no,
at Hinge
it's not.
answers, no, that would not be, like, the most
No,
compelling, intriguing answer.
no. But like, really internalizing that that's how I'm looking to feel.
Yeah.
I think, like, for a long time, I had thought about what I wanted in a partner in terms of things I could observe about them or qualities they have, and I hadn't focused as much on how I wanted to feel.
Mm,
And that was kind of a shift for me. And also,
yes.
for the record, like, I mentioned that, I just met him and it was easy and I'd been single for 4 years. So,
Yeah.
like, it's not your girl was out there trying.
And
So,
how old
I
are
also
you?
wanna,
And
like
how old are you and how old is Skyline?
I'm 37, he's 38.
Okay.
He is so much older than me for the 2 months in between our birthdays. I'm gonna be 38 in a month.
Oh my god, that's funny. Oh my happy early birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like to give that context because I also think, like, there is this idea that the older you get, the harder it is to find someone, but I really don't believe that is 100% true. I mean, I think that we can say, like, statistically, maybe there are fewer people in the dating pool as you get older
For
because
sure.
people are pairing off, but there are still good single people out there.
Also, people are unpairing,
Yeah.
and that's how I met my boyfriend.
Yes. Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about how you met?
Yes. So, background on all of this on our first episode that we talked about, I had been trying to go to more in-person stuff. Dating events and non-dating events, just more things. So, there's this one night when I had this, like, high school alumni thing that my high school does a couple times a year in New York. I grew up in California, but they, like, bring people to New York and they do a meetup. I'd been at that, and there was another event that night that I had said I was gonna go to. I had told my friend who was running the event that I would go. I really didn't want to because I had been at this high school alumni thing. I was like, "I'm tired." Like, we'd had a couple drinks at the thing. Like, I kinda wanna go home, but I told her I would go. So I went, and I showed up, and there was another friend that I didn't know knew the organizer.
Cool.
Like, very random, and I had seen that guy at an event that I throw every year the previous week. So I went up to him and I was like, "Oh my god, I've seen you now twice in 1 week, like, that's crazy, blah, 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 how do you know so and so?" And he was with this big group of guys, and I started talking to all of them, and then eventually Skyline and I paired off, and we ended up talking and shutting the bar down, and it was just like I said, we started talking and we just never stopped.
Oh my goodness. Okay, what was your first impression of Skyline?
Well, I had technically met him a week prior, although I didn't remember that it was the same person. I met him at this event that I run every year. It's a beer Olympics. It's a fundraiser for my volleyball team so that we can travel. And I'm like the head ref. And so I'm like in charge of enforcing all the rules. I'm going around making sure everybody's running on time, like all that shit. And he had tried to come up to me to dispute a call that one of my teammates who was reffing his event had made. And I just like shut him down.
You were not
Like, I was
you were
like,
not in the, like, flirting zone. You were in
no.
beer ref zone. Yeah.
I was in beer ref zone. And also, like, it's a beer Olympics, right? So people are drinking all day. We are not, though. So you can only imagine how much patience you have for the people that have been drinking all day when you have
Right.
not been.
Was he, like, wasted or something?
I don't even remember. I don't think so.
Yeah.
But I just was like, absolutely not. We're not doing that. The refs call stands. Go away. Literally like that. And
So he probably remembered
he
you even though you did not remember him.
oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, and he actually came on my Patreon a couple weeks ago. I introduced him to our patrons, which was super fun, and he was like, "Yeah," so I walked away being like, "Oh, that girl's kinda mean. Cool." Uh,
You know what, though? Wait, I wanna pause here. It's like, this is why we need to just be yourself in dating and stop
Yep,
trying to, like, just be yourself. It's okay. Like, for the
yeah,
right person, it's gonna be fine.
1,000%, 1,000%. So, he remembered me, so, like, then it was like, "Oh, that's right, you were on my friend's team. Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah." But he is not my usual type. So, like, historically, I have gone for very clean-cut men.
Same.
Yeah, like preppy or just no facial hair or very little facial hair. Hair,
Yeah,
um,
in
he
general.
doesn't have any. In general, they typically have hair. No tattoos. Like, I have a few, they're small, but, like, I really haven't ever dated anybody with tattoos. Skyline is broad, burly guy. Oh, also usually, like, I usually go for, like, a soccer player type, like that
Like,
kinda build.
wiry, yeah.
Yeah, like a wiry build. Skyline is, like, burly football player build, tattooed sleeves, shaved head, big beard. He keeps it shorter now, but at the time it was, like,
And nail
a beard.
polish,
And nail polish.
which is
Yeah.
awesome.
It's amazing. We get manicures together, it's so fucking
It's
fun.
so fun.
Yeah. So never did I ever think that I would be, like, sitting in the manicure chair next to my, like, tattooed boyfriend.
I think it's
It's
amazing.
very it's so
But that's
cool.
but
It is, and
again,
I'm
this is
obsessed with him.
we always talk about this. I know you talk about this on your show. I talk about this on my show. It's like, you need to look outside your type. Our types are not like, you can still date within your type, but, like, broaden it a little bit. You never know who you're going to meet. Like, you never really know who you're gonna end up with.
Totally, and like I said, I'm obsessed with him. I think he is so hot, all of these things, and I thought he was hot or, like, attractive when I met him. It's not like I met him and was like, "Ew, that man." But he just isn't the guy that I would, like, visualize.
Mhm. Mhm. But you guys look great
So
together.
oh, thank you.
Yeah.
We feel great together. It's really, really nice, and so my first impression of him was not a romantic prospect.
Right.
And he's in this big group of guys and, like, we're all like, I wasn't going into this event thinking like, "Oh, maybe I'll meet someone," especially after I saw my friend, because then it was like, "Oh, good. I was low energy after the last event. I can just hang out with people I know. I don't have
Right.
to meet new people tonight."
But then you were in this group of guys, like, you're just chatting, and then you and Skyline pair off, and you
Yep.
shut the bar down. Okay, after that, how are you feeling?
So we shut the bar down. We're, like, making out at this bar to
Oh,
the
okay,
point where the
okay.
bartender was like, "Do you guys have another place you could be?"
Get a
Like,
room.
yeah, literally. But here's the thing. He didn't even have a room yet. He had just moved to New York. He didn't even have an apartment yet. He was, like, fresh off the plane, staying with my friend
Oh,
that
okay.
I had met him through, looking for a place. Like, he was, like, sleeping on his friend, my friend, our mutual friend's couch, knew he was gonna move to New York, had already transferred with his job to the office here, but, like, just hadn't signed a lease yet. So, like, he didn't even have a room to go to.
Oh my goodness.
So, yeah, we shut the bar down. I actually invited him to come home with me, and he declined.
Oh my gosh, really?
Uh-huh.
Wow. Okay, you know what? Get it.
In hindsight, I'm, like, happy he did because I think I honestly wasn't even seeing it as
Oh,
a
fair.
potential long-term thing at the time.
You were also being kind. You have nowhere to go. Just come with me.
Well,
Yeah.
there's that. Yeah, I'm like, "Oh, you're sleeping on a couch? We should continue this at my place." And so he had just moved to New York, and he was recently out of a marriage, and he was with that person for, like, a decade.
Wow, okay. And no kids, right?
No kids.
Yeah.
No. Knowing that context, when I met him and was talking to him and was, like, making out with him at the bar, I was not in my head thinking like, "Oh, this could be your person."
Right. But also we shouldn't be.
No,
Yeah.
we shouldn't.
On the first
We
time you
shouldn't.
talk to someone, right?
I totally
Yeah.
agree. Yeah, I totally agree. So I was just like, "Fuck it. This guy, I'm enjoying making out with him. He's a good kisser. Like, I'm gonna invite him back to my place." He said no. He had an early meeting apparently. So then we were, like, texting. He got my number, and we were texting, and I asked him on our first date.
Amazing. Allie, weren't you worried that you were in your masculine energy? I know, I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry. Can we pause the podcast for me
Yeah.
to vomit?
Yeah.
No, I know you feel the same way that I do about this.
Yeah, sorry. I'm poking fun at this if you're new to the show. I don't like categorizing things like masculine, feminine energy, and when I
No,
talk about women initiating a date, people are like, "Well, then they're gonna be lazy and they're not gonna do anything, and I'm gonna have to lead the whole thing." It's like, "No. No, no, no. That's not
no.
how it works."
Unless they were gonna be that way to begin with, and
Right.
then it wouldn't matter.
Right, right. It's not like you're going to flip a switch when you ask them out on the date, that all of a sudden it's like, "Oh,
No,
I
and
can
they're
just
like,
sit back."
"Oh, yeah, I was gonna be proactive and, like, put 50-50 into this, but now that she asked me on the first date, I'll do nothing for the rest of my
Yeah,
life."
what? No, no.
That's not how
Good for
that's
you.
not gonna happen,
Okay.
and there is something to be said for, like, noticing a pattern. So, like, if I had asked him on that first date and then had to follow up and push
Yep.
every single thing along from there, that would have been a problem.
100%. 100%. But good for you. So you asked him
Yeah.
out. That was the next day
I
you
asked
asked
him
him out?
out, maybe a couple days later. I forget exactly when. We were texting back and forth. He had texted me to give me his number. We had been texting. I sent him a, like, kinda tipsy text message when I was on my way home.
Was that
And
the
then the next day
Skyline
we were
message?
texting. Yeah, well, yeah, I sent him the reason I call him Skyline is because I had sent him a picture of the skyline as I crossed over the Manhattan Bridge into Brooklyn, and, it's my favorite view of the city. If you're familiar with the view from the Manhattan Bridge, you can see the Brooklyn Bridge and the skyline. It's gorgeous. It's my favorite view. And I sent him what I thought was that view, but in the cab, it's just, like, colored lines.
It's just blurry as hell. Just
It's the
can't see
blurriest thing
anything.
you've ever seen. You can't see anything. He was so nice about it. He was not like, "What the fuck is this?" He just hearted it and moved along. So that's why I call him Skyline. So we were texting for a couple days, I think, and he was being like, we were going back and forth and everything, and then I said something, I forget exactly what I said, but I basically was like, "Oh, we should do that again."
Mhm.
And he was like, "Yes, definitely." And then I said, "How about next Thursday?" And he missed it. And he replied to something else that I said.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So we're, like, going back and forth, and I'm like, "Oh, no, I think uh-oh."
Is he intentionally ignoring this, which is definitely something that happens. It is definitely a move.
Uh-huh.
Like, if you're having conversation and someone just doesn't wanna answer the question, like, they will just skip that question. Yeah,
Yes, because I had also said something else. Because
right.
when you're having, like, 2 conversations at the same time.
This is why I always say not to do that. I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's a bad you're
one,
right.
just, like, don't overload the question just one at a time. I do this too.
Yeah, you're right, you're right. So I replied to my own text and said, "I fear this got missed."
You know what? Good for you. Seriously, I love just like giving people the benefit of the doubt and not overthinking it. Like, I think so many people would overthink that. And maybe a few years ago, you might have, right? Like, you've had so much
Yeah,
experience in the dating world. Like, you know that to just give people the benefit of the doubt sometimes, especially if it's a new
yeah,
connection. Yeah.
absolutely. 10 months later, I can tell you it did get missed.
Yeah, I got missed.
He didn't
So,
see
what
it.
did he say after you
He
broke
was
a
like
cardinal rule of dating and double texted?
yeah, to reply to my own text message. He joked because I had used kind of like corporate speak, and so
Like,
he was
circle
like,
back.
"Thank you." Yes, he said, "Thank you for circling back. It did indeed get missed."
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so then we went out on our first date that next week and kind of progressed from there,
Right.
and he actually went out of town for 6 weeks after our 3rd date,
Yeah.
and I was really nervous about that, but we talked every day, we FaceTimed, we kept in touch, and
Yeah.
the day he got back, we defined the relationship, which I also asked him about.
Well, okay, I wanna just pause there for a second because I remember going on your
Yeah.
Patreon the week you, like, revealed all of this, what actually happened, and my mind was blown because you were talking about how you guys had, like were doing sleepovers and stuff, and, like, it was, like, information overload. I was like, "What?" Like yeah. Okay, I wanna back up, though,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah, yeah.
think I love you sharing your story because I think it can be really helpful for listeners just to hear how you, as someone who engages with a lot of dating content and makes it like this is your job.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
like and it's like, can you break down a little bit your thought process on those, especially the first 3 dates? Because you were ready for a relationship, right? This is something you were looking for. Okay. So
Yes.
first of all,
1,000%.
what was going through your mind as you got to know him those first 3 dates in terms of, like, vetting him, being like, "Okay, is this guy for real?"
Yeah, so, like I said, I knew that he had very recently been married, and so I was wary of that. I've dated somebody who was very recently engaged previously, and it turned out was not ready for a relationship, even though he thought he was. And,
Mhm.
I'm sure it had to do with also us not being the right connection and like all of that jazz, but it was upsetting. So I was wary of that. I was also still dating though. So actually, the week that I went on our first date, I went on another first date. And then I went on a second date with that guy the week I went on the second date with Skyline. So like I was still
Yeah.
dating other people, which in hindsight, apparently he was listening to the podcast
Which one?
during this
Skyline?
time. Yeah, Skyline was listening to my podcast because I told him about it, but I didn't know he was, like, actively listening, and he was like, "This taco guy took her out for tacos. Such a good idea. I should have thought of that idea."
Oh my goodness. Oh my
'Cause
god.
on my second date with the other guy, we went on a taco crawl through the East Village, and Skyline was like, "Fuck, that was a good idea."
You know what? Honestly, good response, not like, "Oh, she's not into me because she's seeing other people."
Yeah, no, he didn't think that at all. So to answer your question, so I was wary of the fact that he was recently out of a marriage and like he wasn't looking for a relationship. He thought he wanted to be single for quite a while. He's always been more of a relationship guy. And so even prior to that nearly 10-year relationship, he had been in longer term relationships pretty much since high school.
Yeah.
So he was like, I'm moving to New York. I'm spreading my wings. Like, not necessarily in the dating space, but just in general.
Yeah, it's like a new start after a breakup and you move. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
My brother did the same thing. He
Um,
left a 4-year relationship in the Bay Area, moved to New York, and now he's, dating and having a great time.
yeah, exactly. And divorces take a long time,
Yeah.
especially in California. Even if they're the easiest, most simple things in the world, they take forever. And so he was like, you know what? I just want to be single and all this stuff. And he told me that like that was his intent to moving to New York. But he also said, I'm like really enjoying getting to know you. And I would be remiss to not continue to get to know you, even though like that was my intent
Right.
when I moved here.
Okay, and how did you feel about that? How do you process that?
So I was like, okay. I basically was like, well, we'll just continue with this until it either doesn't feel right for one of us or whatever that looks
I
like.
mean, that's amazing mindset, but that's so much easier said than done. So for folks listening who are in this scenario, I think this is a very common scenario of like, we like each other, but like, this is early. Let's see where it
Mhm.
goes. What are some tips you have to like kind of ground yourself in that moment?
I think so. Also, for reference, these conversations I'm talking about are happening on our like first, second date. I'm not talking like months into it and we're having these conversations. So at this point, he's practically a stranger still. And I think that is important grounding or was important grounding for me of like, I literally a week ago, I didn't know this man existed and I really like him
Mhm.
and I want to see where this goes. But like, I don't even know yet if this is somebody that I want to be in a relationship with. So it almost doesn't matter yet if he is ready.
Yes, so well said. Right. It doesn't matter who's ready, who's not. It's like you still need to get to know him and see if he's even relationship material. So then, okay, so you had your first 3 dates, then he was gone for 6 weeks because he was like in the process of moving, right? He was like packing up his stuff and like getting to New York and all those things.
Exactly. So he had come to New York to find an apartment and he was here for like, I want to say a month, found an apartment, signed a lease, didn't actually end up starting until August. So that was an interesting in between time, but found an apartment, signed a lease, and then had planned to go back to San Francisco where he'd lived before, like clean out his old apartment that his ex had already moved out of,
Mhm.
but he was like, I got to clean it out, all that stuff, and then go home for a while to his parents. And it's like all this was already set in stone before he even got to New York.
Right.
So he did that. And basically, we went on our second date a week after our first date, but our third date only like 3 or 4 days later because he was leaving.
Mhm.
And it was then that I was like, okay, we're really gonna see what
Yeah.
happens here, right? Like, I'm like, I wanna keep talking to him. And I told him before he left, I was like, I would love to keep in touch and talk and maybe FaceTime. And then I remember the first part of his trip before San Francisco was actually a work trip in Chicago. And he sent me all of these pictures of like him and his team like out at happy hour. And
That's
he was
cute.
sending me pictures of the Chicago office that's like really nice. And then he sent me like 7 pictures. And then he goes, if the pictures are too much, just tell me and I can back off.
We love that. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I was like, do not back off,
Yeah.
please.
So, again, this is another really common scenario that happens in early dating where someone goes away for a while and it's like, what do we do? We just had these 3 great dates. Everything's going well, but now there's this time apart. How do you navigate this? So, you're saying that you said to him straight up, I want to keep in touch and I want to FaceTime.
Yeah.
And what
I
did he
said I
say?
was he said, yeah. He was like, okay, yeah, like, what he's like, I asked him, I was like, are you a FaceTime guy? And he was like, not usually, but I'm open to it.
Oh, great. I want to pause there because I love that you're like, you're bringing it up as like, what is your communication style? Not how can we stay in touch? It's like, first, let's just like talk about communication as a topic, which I always say is like, just talk about texting as a topic before you talk about how you want to text each other and like how often.
1,000%. Some people FaceTime all the time. Like
Yeah.
there are some people who just like FaceTime their friends all the time, and I'm not one of those people either. But I do think that it was really important for us to have more face-to-face interactions when we'd only been on 3 dates,
Mhm.
to almost have like virtual dates in a
Right,
sense.
right, 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 right.
And something that I also think was important that I did that I would recommend is talking about how it doesn't have to be these like long drawn out phone calls or FaceTimes.
Yeah, it can be quick, 5 minutes.
So quick. And I think that people get scared. I think he was scared that I was going to want to talk to him for like 3 hours. And he was like, what are we going to talk about? And like one time we did talk for like 3 hours because it just happened naturally. But the first time I specifically FaceTimed him when I had to go somewhere in like 30 minutes.
Okay, right. You had an out.
I had a built-in
Yeah,
out
hard out in
that
corporate
like
speak.
a hard out that like wasn't contrived. It was like I have to leave for something in like 30 minutes and I just thought I would call and say hi.
Nice. And that this is
Yeah,
it's so
and
important because, like, I can see how it could be really scary to make that call, especially the first time, but it's like,
oh
the
yeah.
fact that he picked up and he talked, it's like, this is how you build trust at early dating. You have to start with these little risks, and you also have to be mentally prepared for the person to maybe not pick up or be, like, not super engaging on the phone call, and then it's kinda disappointing, but, like, that's another data point. The
Yes.
world isn't over.
No. And I think that that's how I was building trust, that he was saying that he was invested in getting to know me better, even though that was not his original intent.
Mhm.
Or not that I wasn't his original intent,
Right.
but like
Yeah, yeah.
getting into a relationship wasn't his original intent. But he was saying that he was invested in getting to know me more. And then he was doing things that lined up with those words. And
Yes.
that was so, so important for me to continue to notice those actions lining up with those words consistently.
Amazing. And then by the end of the 6 weeks, he came home and then you guys defined the relationship. So can you tell us a little bit about that moment? And, like, you said you brought it up?
Yeah, we were talking at this point all the time,
Yeah.
like
That 6 weeks just
FaceTiming
yeah.
pretty much every day. Like we were talking all the time. I wasn't dating anybody else. We hadn't talked about that, but I knew he wasn't dating anyone else, mostly just because of his circumstances.
Yeah. Why would he date in San Francisco when he's, like, literally moving? You
Yeah,
know?
or then, like, he was home at his parents' in the South for 2 weeks, like, I knew he wasn't
Yeah.
going on dates, and I didn't want to, and basically in my head, I was like, "I don't know if this is going to go where I want it to go, but I'm willing to wait until he gets back to find that out, and if it's not, I am now at the point where I'm gonna need to move on." Like,
Mm.
I could feel
Yes. I love
that.
that clarity of, like, okay, when he comes home, we're gonna have this conversation, and either way, I'm gonna be fine, but I'm gonna get my direction on based on how this
Yes.
goes.
Yeah.
Amazing. I also wanna say, like, point out that in the 6 weeks, things didn't ramp down, they ramped up, and I think this is a
Mhm.
really important green flag in getting to know someone in early dating, like, this is also why you don't wanna go hot and heavy in the beginning because it needs to be sustainable enough where it can increase, like, the frequency of how you talk and how long you talk can increase. If you start with the
Yeah.
3-hour FaceTimes from the first time you get to know each other, you can't go up from there. Yeah.
Completely, and it's actually important to note we weren't texting every day in between our, like, first and second dates,
Right,
really.
right.
So, like, that ramped too,
Mhm.
and then, like we were saying, then we were FaceTiming more and talking on the phone more and, like,
And you
just
didn't have to ask or beg or anything, you just did it. That's the other thing, like, you don't have to
Mhm.
talk about, like, "I want more." It just happens when you meet the right person, and it's reciprocal, it's like a flywheel, it just keeps going.
Yeah, it is worth talking about what you want because I know that we wouldn't have FaceTimed if I hadn't brought it up and asked for it because it's not his natural mode of communication.
Right, okay, and then also, yeah, huge green flag, the fact that he was open to it and did it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and for the record, we never FaceTime now, ever,
right,
literally
well,
ever,
yeah.
because it's neither of our but some people do, like, I
Yeah,
have friends who FaceTime with their husbands all the time because that's just, like, what
right.
they
Yeah,
do.
yeah, Johnny and I never do, but that's because he is an Android and I'm an iPhone.
Oh,
If
tough.
we wanna do that, we have to go on Snapchat, so so,
Yeah, so, like, that's not something that is normally, like, a natural part of what I do with anyone, friends, family, or anything, but I wanted
yeah,
to establish that connection, and something that I love so much about him, which you've mentioned about Johnny as well, is he is open to things.
yeah. Okay, so tell us how the DTR convo went. Sorry, define the relationship as DTR. Yeah.
Yes. So he was gone for almost 6 weeks. He ended up coming back early. We jokingly were like, "Oh, you just missed me so much," but, like, he was getting annoyed with his parents. So, I picked him up from the airport. I have a car in New York, which is unusual. I've never picked up someone from the airport ever in my life, and I decided to pick him up from the airport. We had this whole joke going about how I was gonna do a running hug jump when I saw him,
Oh my god, I remember this.
and I was, like, practicing how to do one.
The video of you doing the running hug jump is one of my favorite things on the internet. I will link it in the show
I
notes because it is so funny that you practice this and you're like, "Okay, I'm gonna do it," and then you just keep recording, you just it's it was just
Well, yeah. So at first it was a joke because I had told him I think I might have been watching The Bachelor or Bachelorette at the time or
they always
something.
do that. Yeah.
They
It's a
always do it
motif of the show.
every single time, and I would always joke with my friends, like, I will never be able to run and hug and jump to someone because I would knock them over. I'm 6 feet tall for everyone. I'm like, I'm not like, my limbs would be everywhere, like, I will never be a running hug jumper, and he was like, "You can run and hug jump me." I was like, "What?
That's hot. I
Okay."
love that.
Yeah. So then I was like, "Well, now I have to practice how." So I literally was this is so embarrassing, but I was literally watching YouTube videos of old Bachelor and Bachelorette episodes to understand how the, like, mechanics work.
I feel like this is, like, how an athlete, like, you would do this.
Yes.
Like, you're
I was
like,
watching
"What
game
is
tape.
the technique?"
I was literally reviewing I was in the, like, the tape room reviewing game tape and taking notes on how I was gonna do this. So, I pick him up at LaGuardia and, like, park and come in because 'cause I'm like, "Yeah, I have to do that if I'm gonna be able to do this hug jump thing." So, I'm standing in baggage claim, and I'm recording myself because I do my little, like, dating recap or whatever. So, I'm recording, like, okay, I'm waiting for him, I'm nervous, and then I see him, and I thought that I clicked the camera off, but I didn't. And so it's just a blur, like, I don't know I'm recording, so it's just like a blur of everything. I'm, like, running towards him, I'm like, "I'm gonna do it," and he's like, "Okay," and I just, like, jump and latch onto him, and then I come down, we're talking, and then I was like, "Oh, fuck, I'm still recording."
It's amazing. Yeah, I love that you guys, like, plan that. It's just, like also just in relationships, the fun and spontaneous things or the sexy things are sometimes they're planned. Sometimes they are, and
Yeah,
that's okay. Okay? It's not like
yeah, I
in The
agree.
Bachelor where you have so many opportunities
No,
to do the running
I
hug
know, and
jump.
I doubt that they're practicing their hug jumps, but I had to, and I'm okay with that.
Okay, so you accomplished this running hug jump, which I think could have made or break your relationship, I think, if you guys
Oh,
failed
if we
that.
had bowled over,
Yeah,
forget it, I
no,
would've
you
left
would've been done.
LaGuardia alone. So, I knew that I wanted to define the relationship, like, soon. I didn't necessarily know that it was gonna be that day. But I'm like, at some point this week. Oh, because I forgot to mention, he was staying with me that week.
Wow, yeah. But you know what? It's like, okay,
Yeah.
you were talking so much, it's like clearly the relationship developed, so it's like that makes sense.
Originally, he was supposed to have a hotel through work because he was gonna have clients in town, and he had invited me to join him for that, and then that fell through, the clients didn't come. So I was like, "Well, now I'm sad, like, we're not gonna have
A
our
sleepover.
little." Yeah, so, like, "You should just stay with me." So he did. So I knew he was gonna be at my apartment for, like, 3 or 4 nights. I was like, "Okay, at some point this week, I wanna talk about it." And he had heard me say that on the podcast, and so he knew that I wanted to talk about it. He, in his head, was wondering if I was gonna bring it up because he also wanted to bring it up, and I just couldn't take it anymore. Like, we were sitting so I'd picked him up, we dropped stuff off at my place, and then we went to this, like, rooftop vineyard thing in Dumbo, and we were sitting there, and I was just looking at it, I was like, "I wanna talk about this right now."
Oh,
I basically was just like, in my head, was like, if this is not going where I think it's going, meaning like he also wants to be in a relationship, then I need to cut this off right now because I am in deep.
yeah. I think it's really interesting that you guys were on the same page, mentally. Look, your situation of having a podcast where you talk about your dating life is it does not apply to most people. So, like, where
Yeah,
he would
very
have this
unique.
information, do you think that there is a virtue in preparing someone for this conversation of like, "Hey, like, I actually wanna talk to you about something. Don't worry, it's, like, good news," or, "Don't worry, it's fun," like, something like that.
I don't think so
Okay.
because I'm thinking about it in the reverse.
Mhm.
If somebody said that to me, I would be like, no, let's talk about it right
Yeah,
the fuck
yeah,
now.
yeah.
Like, what? No.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't think so. But it is just funny in hindsight to be like, he was just, like, smirking at me, being
Oh,
like,
I
"I
know.
wonder if she's gonna bring the." Yeah, like, I know that she knows, like, all this stuff, and I asked him when he was gonna bring it up if I didn't, and he said probably the next day.
Okay. So give us the moment. What did you say?
So we're sitting there, we're, like, sitting on this rooftop, and I said to him, I was like, "I think we're on the same page about this." but I haven't been seeing other people and I really don't want to. And he said, I feel the exact same way. And so we like kissed and was like, that's awesome. And then I was like, also, I'm kind of a labels gal. And he was like, okay.
It's like me, like, I'm
Such
kind
an
of a whole
awkward,
milk gal. Like, I don't know,
such a
just
weird way for me to say it.
kind of
Listen, it's okay to be awkward is the moral of the story, okay? You
Yes,
can research how to
yes.
hug jump someone and then say you're kind of a labels gal.
Again, every
Um,
every example is just, like, you being yourself, and I absolutely love that.
yeah,
Mm,
I am like awkward and weird and, that's great. So I said that and he was like, legitimately, I don't know what that means. Like,
I mean, fair. Does that
he
mean, like,
was like,
designer
okay.
labels? Like, are you asking for a handbag?
You Yeah, he was like, "What do you do?" Well, yeah, exactly. "Do you want, like, a DTR present? Like, where is this going?" And so then I said, like, "I would like to call you my boyfriend." And he said, "Well, that's great because I already assumed I was gonna be calling you my girlfriend."
Love it. And sometimes it is assumed. Sometimes, like, some people, like, are like, "Oh," they're like, "Oh, why are we having this conversation? Like, I've already been calling you my girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever." But I still think it's
Yeah,
good to get on the same page. Yeah.
1,000%. Because I do think there is a difference, like, there definitely is a "we are exclusive." There's a difference between that and being in a relationship. That doesn't mean you have to go through both those stages, though.
Right. Of course, yeah. No, no, no. And you kind of were in that
So,
stage
like
without talking about it. I think that's, like, part of why
sure.
exclusivity is debated so much in early dating because some people just, like, naturally fall into only seeing each other, and some people do have a conversation, and there's no right or wrong.
Yeah. So, yeah, we had that conversation, and then we were boyfriend, girlfriend,
Yeah.
and that was that, and I am so happy and, like, proud of myself that I pushed myself to say those things and have that conversation and lead with my feelings about it, because, one of the questions that I get a lot, and I'm sure you probably do too, is, like, how to have the "what are we"
Yes. Yeah, that's like
conversation.
yeah. It's like every other
And
question.
every time I'm like, "Don't have the 'what are we' conversation. Don't ask someone 'what are we?' Instead, talk about what you would like to be and ask them how they feel about that."
Yeah. That's, how you do it. You state what you want and then let it hang in the air. You're not feeling for them, you're not answering for them.
Yeah. I like to say, "Put my money where my mouth is" on that advice, and I did it.
Yes.
But I think the other thing that's really important to note is, like, I'm telling the story and you're hearing a lot about, like, "I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this," right? Like, I asked him on our first date. I asked him to be my boyfriend. I asked him to FaceTime. He is meeting me 100%. Like, I'm going 90, and then the next time he's going 90, and he is, like, showing up and enthusiastically showing up.
Yeah.
And then since that day has been a consistent 50-50 partner,
Yes.
which is something that is so important to me. And like we were saying before about patterns, that's important. So, like, I'm all for going for what you want and leading the way and saying, but notice
But, yeah,
patterns.
you only did those things because you had evidence that he was showing up consistently. Other than the first date ask, like, the rest of it was you only did that because he was showing you that he was meeting you at 90. Yeah, like
Yeah, 1,000%.
yeah.
And I think that's been the way then our relationship progressed and just has been really naturally progressing. And he is just so enthusiastically in it despite having not been looking for it. And that is something that I don't think about it anymore, but, like, that
Yeah.
I was really looking at to evaluate in the beginning.
And I guess I just wanna really, really stress this point that, like, you didn't have to do or be anything extra for him to be enthusiastically there into you and the relationship. You didn't have to, like, play any games. You didn't have to manipulate. You didn't have to beg. You didn't have to convince him. You just showed up authentically and securely. And I'm sure people listening, like Ali talks about her anxiety in the podcast all the time. Like you talked about you had moments of anxiety with Skyline and
Oh,
but he
yeah.
was able to make you feel safe in those moments and you were able to communicate that. And it's like you're not gonna have to convince the person to be with you, and that's where I see a lot of people getting stuck. That's why I'm saying this.
Yeah. For the record, I still have anxiety
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
in life, but, literally yesterday, I had relationship anxiety, and I, like, texted him. I had, like, terrible stress dreams unrelated to him. I dreamed I was, like, trapped under a bed while someone was getting murdered above me.
That's horrible. Oh my god.
Yeah, it was horrific, and and so I woke up with really high anxiety, and I put it on my relationship because it's a safe place to put it. This is what I've learned, this I put things in places where they're safe, and I texted him that, and I said, like, I'm having a really high relationship anxiety day," and he was just there for me in that. We weren't supposed to spend last night together, he came over. He consistently shows up for me, in ways that I don't even need to ask him to do anymore because I've just shown him who I am and what my needs are.
All right, Allie, I have one more last question for you. And listeners, I'm sorry, there's a leaf blower right next to me. We're in a new space. I'm getting used to it. I didn't know. um, so, Allie,
Now you know this time block will be a no-go for
yeah.
you from now on.
So, Allie, can you tell us what advice you think you've picked up over the years in your dating journey that contributed to this successful relationship you're in now?
I truly think that I have always said, ask for what you want and you just might get it. And I've not always been good at that. Like, for the record, I have listeners, viewers have seen me not ask for what I want or accept less than I deserve, all of the things. Like, I have made the mistakes that I give advice about. We're all human. I would not be where I am now in this relationship had I not really gone after what I wanted in a way that really felt authentic to me.
That is such a great core advice that I think, again, is easier said than done because we get in these situations in early dating where our anxiety runs the show and it's hard to come back to that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I say I knew that I was in a place where if he was not ready to be in a relationship with me when he got back, that I needed to walk away. I say that knowing that that would have been so fucking hard, and I probably wouldn't have done it right away. In, like, full transparency, I probably
Yeah.
wouldn't have if we'd been on that rooftop and I had said, "I'm not seeing other people and I don't want to," and he had been like, "I am and I do," I can't sit here and say I would have been like deuces off that
Yeah.
rooftop.
Yeah. And
Like, that would have been
that's
really
honest
hard.
and real. I think you're right. I think that would be I mean, that would have been really hard to do and but you would have I think I have full confidence you would have gotten there.
1,000%.
Yeah.
I know that I would have, but, like, that I think it was continuing to check in with what I wanted and how I was
Yeah.
feeling, and, hopefully he's on the same page, and he was, and it was great.
That's amazing. And do you think that if you met Skyline a year earlier, like the same thing would have played out?
I like to think yes. I don't know that I would have been so laissez-faire about it. I think a year prior even 2 years prior, for sure, no. Like, 2 years prior is when I was, like, really still working through anxious attachment and, like, figuring out how to really stand in what I wanted and be really, really confident in that. And I think that that's so much of that work is what allows me to be in this healthy relationship now where like I said, I still have my anxiety and I still have times when I'm feeling small and when I need, reassurance and all of those things, but I know how to ask for those things now.
Yes, and you're with someone who makes you feel safe enough to ask for those things, who isn't going to
Mhm.
blow up at you, get defensive, shut down, walk away, say you're too much, all the things that I'm sure a lot of people have experienced and you've probably experienced too. But this person
Yeah.
has proved that they are in your corner. They want to be a good partner, so you feel safe to speak up. And that's like what makes a relationship successful. Like two partners need to create that ecosystem together where there is that safety.
1,000%.
Yeah.
And where, where I feel like I can ask for things that I need and not feel like a burden.
So, going back to the beginning of our conversation about meeting people in real life, so I think this is a big trend for this year. You were in my like predictions
Oh, yeah.
episode. We were talking about in real life. So, like, what's your advice for people who are doing that right now and trying to meet people in real life?
I think that there's so much to be said for expanding the ways that you're meeting people because while I was trying to meet more people in person, I wasn't shutting off dating apps. And it's totally cool if you want to. I know a lot of people that are burned out on the apps want to take a full break from them. For me, though, dating felt more joyful when I felt like there were so many more options for how I could meet someone. Where, like, maybe I would meet somebody in an event, maybe I would meet somebody on Bumble, and all it just having more available options made things feel easier. And then the other thing that I think really helped is to take the pressure off of each individual event that you're going to. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to incorporate non-dating events as
Right.
well, because I didn't wanna be showing up at every event, like, looking around for my person.
Yeah. And I mean, it's important to note that when you went to this event where you had your first like real conversation with Skyline, you were not in that mindset, but you were open to it.
Yes. Although I wasn't in that mindset that night, I was at that event because I had set out to be at more of those
Right.
events.
That was your intention of, yeah.
That was my intention, and once you start going to those events, you're gonna meet more people who like to do those things, and they're gonna invite you to more things, and it's gonna snowball. And that's what happened to me, and my initial goal was to go to 2 events a month, and I ended up going to, like, 5 or 6 just because I was having fun.
Yeah, you're enjoying it. That's the thing, I want people to enjoy what they're doing, so it's like the second you find something you actually like in terms of, like, how you're meeting people, where you're going, the spaces you're in, do more of it. Just do more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, and I think going back to what you were saying about how, it feels like it's harder to meet people the older that you get, I just, like, really wanna hammer home that there are so many options available to you and so much availability for a joyful dating life at any age. Like I said, I was single for 4 years from 32 or 3 to 37, almost
Mhm.
37 when I met him, and, like, I am now in, I think, an endgame relationship
Hell yeah.
at 38.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Amazing. Allie, this has been such an awesome conversation, and, of course, the people are nosy, so I will ask you really quickly, are you guys moving in together? This is this is a question they were it was just I put up the question box, and that was every question of, like, "Are you guys living together?"
That was every question. Are we
Pretty
moving in
much. Yeah,
together?
it was living together and engaged, what's going on?
We're neither living together nor engaged. I do think those things will be on the horizon in the future.
Yeah.
I will keep
It's been
if
you've
you
been
want
together for a
the
year-ish, so yeah.
yeah, it'll be a year, in a couple months. It's 10 months this week. I will keep everybody posted. If you want the update latest on that, you can listen to my podcast, Finding Mr. Height, the podcast,
Yeah,
and I will keep everyone posted.
amazing. Thank you so much, Allie, this has been awesome.